Hello, my name is Jessie and welcome to Bobo's Stitching Quilt. This is a Flosstube video for cross stitching primarily, and this is Flosstube number 1 for me. So welcome. I'm welcoming everybody. There's no returning subscribers, no returning viewers, so thank you so much for stopping by and taking a chance on a newbie like myself. And I appreciate it, and I hope that I add something to the Flosstube community, which has given me quite a bit in these past few months since I've started watching all these videos. Just a little bit about myself. I have notes on a receipt because that's how I do things, and trying to find notepads is difficult, so it's just whatever scrap piece of paper I can find laying around. Just a little bit about myself. So again, my name is Jessie. I live in Kinkade, Texas, which is now turning into a rather good-sized town outside of Houston. And in fact, when I'm not in Texas, I usually tell people I am from Houston because no one knows where Katie is, but our claim to fame is Renee Zellweger, so sometimes she talks about Katie in interviews. And we have a really good high school football team and a really expensive football stadium that made some national news not so long ago. And but I work in downtown Houston for the most part when we're not in quarantine land and working from home. And so I do consider myself from Houston, really, for all intents and purposes. And what do? I work in legal aid, and I direct pro bono engagement. So I work with attorneys who are part of the private bar, so they are in private practice, whether at a firm, solo, whatever, and who want to do pro bono work for those individuals and households who cannot afford to hire an attorney to handle very urgent and necessary legal needs. I think I have one of the best jobs in the world, which is that I get to help people every day, and that's a pretty wonderful thing. I went to law school because I want to be able to help people. Started doing this work about 7 years ago at this point, and I think this is it. This is where I found my path in my career. So that's what I do. I'm going to try not to talk about my work in these videos because no one comes to talk about my work, but it will seep in. It is very much an integral part of who I am. So some of the questions that I pulled out of a Flosstube cross-stitch tags that I'm going to go ahead and answer, so that way you know a little bit more about my cross-stitching, I guess. So when did I start cross-stitching, and my story behind that? I think I was about 9 or 10 years old when I started cross-stitching. I do have the memory, which is I was in a Michaels, and I remember which Michaels it was that I was in with my dad. I don't know why we were there, but I know we were in a Michaels, and I was kind of wandering the aisles as one does, and I came across the needlework and cross-stitching and yarn, that section of Michaels, and I saw kits. I saw all the kits, and I thought, this is pretty interesting, and I thought this is like something that I would think would be fun to do. And of course I was drawn to like the big dimensions and the gold collections and stuff like that. I'm like, I want to do that giant piece right over there. And my dad, being a much more sensible person than I was like, I don't think that's really the way you should start. Maybe you should start on a piece that is a little bit more bite-sized and a little bit more beginner friendly. There was a lady in the shop, I'm not even sure if she worked for Michaels or was just a customer, but she recommended a couple of smaller kits, has a good way to start, and the one that I picked was a white cat with a pink bow. Like, I remember the pattern very distinctly. And so thank you to that lady, whoever you are. I don't know where you are. But my dad trusted her, listened to what she had to say, saying it was a good hobby for a young lady like myself to have, and thus it began. And that's kind of where it is. And I pretty quickly graduated to the the bigger kits, and went from there. So to date myself a little bit, that means I have been stitching for around 30 years. Yeah, is that right? Let me do that math there. Yeah, okay. But I am not a prolific stitcher. I do have some other hobbies that I do, which is one of my other questions here. So some of my other hobbies that really consume a lot of my time is I am obviously a quilter. That's the Bobo stitching quilt. So I'm going to kind of follow the Pumpkin Hollows quilts Flosstube format, which is that I'll talk about cross stitching in the first half of the videos, which is what I think will be the majority of what I will be talking about, because quilting for me takes a little longer to do. And then the second half will be on quilting videos, and I will forewarn you when we're about to start talking about quilts. Hopefully you'll stay around, but if you're not interested, I completely understand. And so I am a quilter, and I started quilting about 15 years ago. A very good friend of mine that I met at a former place of employment was a quilter, and I had always kind of expressed an interest in it, and eventually she was like, just come take a class, and I did, and I was pretty much hooked, and that was pretty much when I shifted some of my hobby to quilting, and I kind of went from cross stitching at that stage to quilting, and I did that more than anything else, and I was really prolific for a good solid 5 years. I made a lot of quilts and gifted a lot of quilts, and I don't know if it's a lot in comparison. I know some people who make a lot of things, and I don't know if I do in that comparison, but like I would still be working on a cross stitch, but it would be one project at a time, and that type of thing. And so I am a quilter, and my other hobby that takes up a good chunk of my time is I'm also a genealogist. I love doing my family genealogy. I find it fascinating. I think history is neat. I think guess that's, I nerd out on history quite a bit, and knowing my family history has been very fascinating to me. My immediate family doesn't know that much about their own history, and so I started kind of doing the research, and it, as you do, it starts out as a family tree kind of a thing. You're like, oh, let's see who I'm related to, and that type of stuff, and it fleshed itself out into learning more of the stories of my ancestors, what they overcame and what they had to endure in order to be able to for me to be here. So you're probably right. So for me to be exactly where I am right now, and I find it very interesting, and that does take up quite a bit of my time as well. In all of my hobbies, and I think this is true for most people, I kind of have fits and starts and things like that. Like I'll get bored for a while, and then I'll switch to something else. Or in my genealogy, I'll hit a roadblock, and I don't really know quite how to get past it, and so I'll kind of put it away for a few months, and then hope that some additional resources may become available, and then I'll kind of do that kind of stuff. So that is kind of my additional hobbies that I have that kind of take up my time. Then I do things like I read, hang out with my husband and my 2 dogs. So I guess those are some personal questions I should answer. I am married. I've been with my husband for 6 years, but we are technically newlyweds. We just got married this past September, and we don't have children. We do have 2 dogs. One is a Corgi, a Chihuahua Corgi mix. Her name is Peggy. She looks like she's hilarious. She's got a Corgi body, but like a Chihuahua face. So I think she's precious. And then we have a Jack Shun, which is a Jack Russell Dachshund mix, and her name is Jordan, and has the lean and longness of a Dachshund, but the ability to spring up like a Jack Russell, and a stubborn dog, but she's wonderful too. And that's it. That's kind of my story about me, and that's kind of it. I think everything else that's like related to getting to know me about my cross stitching and how I prefer to do things, I think we will kind of cover all of that and as we kind of start doing things, as I start doing my shows, and yeah, so I guess let's get down to it. So as I mentioned, I am not a prolific cross stitcher. I watch videos and I'm just amazed at as I scratch my ear, sorry, at how much people accomplish. Like, I'm just always like, wow. I was like, that's amazing. Like, how are you doing all of that? That is, I'm so impressed by all of you. I'm just gonna let you know, like, all of you that I'm watching your videos, and I think, who's got the time, and or they must have the speed. I don't know, like, but I have not. And so for the most part, until recently, I have been what is a monogamous stitcher. I pick a project and I work on it until it's done. And it was a Flosstube video. It was Kokohama's the video. Anyone I mention, I will link below. She had talked about being a monogamous stitcher, and I watched her video a while ago, and she talked about, like, she started doing multiple projects at any given time, and she realized that she would do the same thing that I was doing, which was that I would get bored with a project or get angry with it or something, and then I'll put it aside and I won't come to it for a few months, you know, and in the meantime I'm doing other things. I'm quilting or doing genealogy or reading or just, you know, doing something on my phone, whatever, you know, and then I would come back to it, but then what happens is that it takes forever to finish a project, and then it's like, and I don't want that. Like, I do these because I do want to finish them, and so so I decided that I was going to start more projects. So I don't have a lot to show today, so my hope is just to kind of get started and to introduce myself, and then hopefully you'll come back and see more of what I am doing and my thoughts, and my introduction in saying I have been a monogamous stitcher is to say that while I have been stitching for a very long time, and I don't consider myself a novice in any way, I don't deviate very frequently because I work on these very specific projects, and I'm usually making something I'm interested in, or it's a gift, and so I've almost worked exclusively in Ada. I've almost exclusively used either the floss that's in the kits that I purchase or DMC, and so I'm pretty dull. Like, I think that like, when you would look at my work, you would think, oh, it's like I look like I'm a beginner, but I'm not. Like, I don't think of myself as such. So I'm hoping that what I can bring to the Flosstube community that might be a little bit different is that to have an experienced quilt stitcher, because I do consider myself experienced, but still trying new things. And so what my goal is for my channel is to not only do what you would expect in a Flosstube, which is whips and hauls and finishes and FFOs and things along that lines, but also to kind of come along with me as I try new things, as I kind of experiment and learn to do different things, try new fabrics, try new techniques. I don't know how much out there is new to me, but I hope that will be something that will be interesting to everyone as you kind of hear my reviews of things. And so so that's going to kind of be my my goal. And I'm really sorry. I am discovering that I'm having a really hard time looking at the camera, so I'm just going to slightly always be looking a little off screen. I'm going to try to break that habit as I work on these videos. So, alright, so with that, 15 minutes in, let's get started on some cross stitching. So, this is a project that I've been working on for quite a few years now. I don't remember when I started it, but I purchased the kit at Disneyland, believe it or not, probably 6-7 years ago. It was probably around then. That was the last time I was in Disneyland. It strikes me as something I purchased at that time, and I must have started it at that stage, but I didn't really work on it until about last year, and then I started to really kind of pick it up, and it became my project while my husband was watching football games or something like that. And so this is what it's going to look like when it's done. It's Cinderella, Wishes Upon a Dream. So that's what it's going to look like when I am done. And so it's a Thomas Kinkade design that was put into a kit. And you should know something about me. I love Cinderella. That's my fairy tale. That's my princess story. I don't know why. But I love it. I actually have another pattern that I purchased, which is for the Ever After, based on the Ever After scene of when she shows up at the masquerade with the wings and everything. It's a full coverage. I'm really excited about that, but I'm not touching that until some of these other things are done. And so this is where I am right now. So it's really the pattern itself is 4 pages. It says itself it's 4 pages, but it's really one of those big length pages that folds in half. And so this whole like rectangle here is a page, but I have finished half of it, the one that's on the fold over. So that's kind of where I am. There's nothing new about this. This is it's the Kit's Floss. I don't think it's a DMC. I think whatever the floss is, and it's on a 16 count Ada. So it's a pretty standard thing. But this is what I'm going to tell you. I don't use specialty flosses for the most part, and so this is kind of one of the first times I ever use the metallic threads. That pearl, the gold didn't bother me so much. So there's some gold that's like right there. That didn't bother. Like once I could get into the needle, like I felt like it worked. That pearl that's like half of this castle was nightmarish, and after the fact, it occurred to me that I have thread heaven, and I could have used the thread heaven, and so I think there's more later on somewhere else in the pattern where I have to use more of that, because I have an awful lot left over of the pearl floss. So I think it's going to happen. I'm like, oh, the thread heaven probably would have helped with the misery of that, but it didn't make me feel like I am never ever going to stitch with that pearl ever again. But I do think it's, like, you can see it, I think it's a little shiny, and there's a little bit of an iridescence to it. So I like the look of it, I just didn't like stitching with it. So anyways, that's my story. The other thing that I find really frustrating about this piece that makes me put it away is the greens just drive me nuts. I don't know what it is. I think as I'm getting older, my ability to see color is changing. I don't know, but like there are some greens in here where they're right next to each other, and they're supposed to be different floss, and I am not kidding. I cannot see the difference in the green. Like, I'm like, I don't see it. And in fact, that's what happened. Like, when I had put it away for a while, I was like, I can't touch this, was because I was working on this tree right here, and the greens were just driving me nuts, and I just had to put it away. I don't think I picked it up for like 6 or 7 months. Like, it was a long time. I was that angry at the greens. So, but this became my quarantine project, and my goal for my quarantine project was to finish that page, was to finish this corner page. And so I started in the middle, and usually I try to do enough to get like a base of it, and then I start to travel towards the left, and so that's kind of what you see. So I've kind of finished that, and now I'm filling it in. So that's kind of where I am on that. But just to kind of give you a frame of reference of how much I've been doing, and like, I'm really proud of myself, like, just saying. I mean, I'm not as prolific as some of the other people where the amount of work that I get done, but I felt like I got a lot of stitching. So I do have a journal that I keep of my projects. It's not like it's not a journal that is like lots of different things. Like, I see some people who have like project planners and the cross stitch planners and things like that, and they write down all I don't really care about that so much. The things that I'm really kind of want to remember when I do these kinds of things is like notes about like what I was doing when I was doing the project, you know, designer, the fabric, and and kind of my progress and seeing how long it took me to do it. So you can see from here, so I basically squared out, drew out all of the squares, and each one of those blocks is a 10 by 10, so of stitches. It's not mirrors, so you can't read it, but the blue in the center are the 10 by 10s that are completely stitched that happened before 2020. So that's what I did last year in 2019. And then the green is what I picked up in April when I decided that this would become my quarantine project, and that's what I completed there. But May, I went nutty. Look at all of that I completed in May. And that's the orange, and the purple is what I've done so far in June. I do expect to have a few more to color in by the end of this week. And so Cinderella is my weekday project. I work on that from Monday through Thursday in the evenings. I work on that exclusively during the week, you know, watching TV or whatever. And so that's kind of what I do during the week. And so I have a couple of other smaller projects that I have started that I work on the weekends. And so we'll go to that. So this is, this project is No Face Knitting. It is a pattern from Harp Seal Cross Stitch on Etsy. And this is what it will look like when it's done. So this is from Studio Ghibli's Miyazaki's Spirited Away, which was an Oscar-winning animation movie from a while ago. I am a big fan of animation, and I had found out 2 years ago, this was something I purchased a couple of years ago, that my niece was also a fan of anime, and she had just started cross-stitching, and I was like, something I share with my niece. I was so excited about it. So I bought this pattern because I felt like it was big and it's huge, and it's it's simple enough that I thought that it would be something, because she was already cross-stitching. Like, she was not a brand spanking new one. She was working on like her second project, I think. And I thought, and I gifted her a kit of Totoru, which was smaller and a little simpler to stitch. And my hope was that I would be able to do this as a stitch along with her, that as she kind of progressed, that I would work on this with her, and was to kit up something for her and the kit one up for me, and that together we would make our own No Face. Well, she has stopped cross-stitching, which is fine. She doesn't, I mean, obviously she doesn't have to continue cross-stitching just because her aunt does, but but she has stopped cross-stitching, and she's moved on to embroidery right now, and she seems to be quite taken with that. And of course I am thrilled with any kind of needlework and any kind of crafting. I think that hobbies are good, and so she's kind of worked on that. So this year I decided, well, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and make it for her, and make it into a gift. And so I'm gonna try to do it as a Christmas gift for her. And so this is, so I started working on this in June as well, and this is on 14 count Aida, which means it's giant. It's going to be 13 by 13 and a little change when it's done. And in hindsight, well, not in hindsight, now that I know I'm making it as a gift, I would have done things differently. I would have picked a different size fabric. My preference is the 16 Aida. That's the kind of the size I like. Maybe an 18, but usually 16 is what I picked. And so this is going to be giant, but this is also what I discovered, because it was simple enough that she would also be able to do it. It is a very boring pattern to stitch, because it is literally, this is what I've accomplished. It's a bunch of black rows. Like his whole body is just a big giant black body. And so it's like really boring, and there's some white there. I've done some of the white of his face, but this is the back of his head, and it's just all black. And then on the side of it, as you saw on picture, it's all blue. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just dull. But I'm just plugging through it. Like I think I might switch this to a week project at some point in time, because I do want to get it done for Christmas. I want to FFO it and have it as a gift for her. So I do think that I'm going to switch to that. And I think that because it's kind of a repetitive kind of stitching, that it's a really good TV type of thing where you're just not really paying attention, but you just want something, you know, but you're going to just continue to stitch or something like that. So things I don't like about this though, because again, because it is a 14 as opposed to a 16. I don't love the coverage. You can see the white kind of poking through. It's 2 over, you know, the square. And I think if I was to do it over again, I'd probably do it in 3. I'd probably do a 3 strand, just so that way it was a little bit more full. But that being said, my niece is not going to care. I think she's going to love the fact that I made it for her and that it's a no face, and she loves a no face. So at the end of the day, it is about the person you're giving it to and whether or not they will be happy with it, because aren't we all our own worst critics? So that is no face. Putting it back into my Ziploc bag. I am not notoriously good at storing things in, I do have project bags, but they're all full with quilting projects. And so I can make them. I don't choose to make them. And so I just need to kind of just sit down and make one. So that's no face. My new project, so I do have a third one, and this one was this is my experiment with things I've never done before. And I like even fabric. I usually stitch on an Aida. That's my preference. I have used an even weave. I just prefer that. I think for me, it's just a little bit more structured, and I just like it. But again, I was watching a Flosstube, and I think again it was Coco Hama's and hers. I think it was her video. If it was someone else's video, I'm sorry, I don't remember. But where there was a discussion about, now that being said, most of my projects are like Cinderella, full coverage or take up the majority of the piece, that even like no face, the majority of the piece is going to be covered, right? Like there's not a whole lot of fabric that's going to be poking through, and so an Aida is fine, right? And so because you're not going to see the fabric, and having a little bit of that stiffness makes it, for me, I find it to be a little easier to stitch. But she said something along the lines of like, why wouldn't you pick a linen when you have to be able to see the fabric? Because if you need to see it, it's going to be pretty, right? And so I was like, you know, that's a good reason to try something new. So for the first time ever, I am stitching on linen. And so and I thought I'm going to do it the easy way, which is I'm going to buy a kit. and so I am working on Chinese Zodiac from Pumpkin Frost Stitchery. And I'm sorry, not Pumpkin Frost, Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery. Some weird backwards language happening there. And it's going to be on a Picture This Plus casual linen sand, which is a 28 count, right? So it comes out to being like a 14. So this is it. So I am doing the Chinese Zodiac stitch along, and I'm behind. Just being honest. And so this is as far as I have gotten on it. My review of working on linen. So for those of you who have worked on a lot of linen, this is probably like, whatever, who needs to hear any of this? But if you're new and you're like me and you're kind of like scared to try linen, this is my review. I like it. I like that it's soft. I like touching it. I think when I see the stitching on the fabric and knowing that you're going to be able to see the fabric, I think it looks beautiful. I obviously haven't gotten very far. I've only gotten the rat and the medallion done, and the flowers aren't even done. So, you know, but I work on this one weekend. So this was a 1 weekend progress. And I will say that I'm going to fold this in half so that you can kind of see. So I did the medallion first, and what you can see here is that I feel like when I got to the rat, like, it's not so bad. Like, right? I'm thinking, yeah, you know, it's not too bad. It's not perfect, but it's not so bad. But when you look in the bottom, which is where I started in the middle and went down on my medallion. You can see that I had some miscounting that was happening here, and I missed some stitches here, and that's kind of annoying me a little bit because I would not have made that kind of a mistake in an Aida, but because I was new at this. Now I did put this in a hoop when I was originally stitching it, and I never felt like I could get the tension, but I was scared of stretching out the fabric, and I don't know if that's a thing or not. And I tried to see if I could figure out if that was a concern and that I shouldn't, like, should I be pulling, should I not be pulling. And I had lost a piece of my Q-snap, so I couldn't use my Q-snap, and so I started in a hoop. And so when I was working on that part, I had a really hard time keeping my stitch counting. So it's 2 over 2 is what I am doing, and I just had a really hard time with it in the hoop. Amazingly, that Saturday, I started this on Friday, that Saturday, my missing piece arrived from Yarn Tree. Thank you very much, Yarn Tree. Shout out to you, made my day. And so I was able to switch to a Q-snap at that point in time, and that made a huge difference. And so my Q-snap is the full width. It's 11 by 17 is the Q-snap I have, which fits the whole piece. And so I felt like the Q-snap, I wasn't going to distort the fabric the way a hoop would, because the hoop was going to be just concentrated in specific spots. So, and then once I was able to do that, it got a lot easier and my stitching became more even, and then you see where the rat is. So that is my assessment of the linen. When stitching on a linen for the first time, I would probably say the tension matters. That's how taut your fabric is. Then I probably recommend you using a Q-snap. I don't know if that's what other people will agree with, but so far as a new stitcher in linen, that made a big difference for me. So that is it. Those are my whips. So not a lot, just the 3. And I have some other whips that are hanging around. Just as a side note, this will be something that will show up in my videos a little bit later on. I am in the process of setting up my quilt craft room, and I was in the midst of kind of cleaning out the space, and sorry, get my water off my counter. It looks like it's making a puddle there. I'll take a drink while I'm at it. And so, but anyways, I'm clearing out my craft space, but we were in the midst of that. So it was a room that's basically was a storage room. I'm a little embarrassed to confess to that, but I'm confessing that to you. Just you and us will know this. And so we had to clear out the storage room and find new places, you know, KonMari, all that kind of stuff. So we were doing all of that, and we were just like literally, like, I was in the process of moving all of my quilting supplies into the room, all of the furniture moving in, and that was, then we went home for quarantine. And so I was like, oh, so my quilt room became my home office for a while. I'm working from home, so I haven't really been able to do that. So I'm kind of missing a lot of things, and so I can't find everything. So that's basically my story. But I'm hoping that we have a goal for October, which is when the Quilt Festival will hopefully be able to go on here in Houston. It's the big one here in Houston. And I'll be able to buy some more furniture pieces that I've been eyeing and have been saving towards. We're planning on buying a new sewing machine. I've had mine for 15 years, and I feel like it's time for an upgrade. So really super excited about that. And so that's it. That is all of my whips in progress. And once I find the other whips, though, that's where I was saying they were kind of missing because of the chaos in my quilt room. I do have a basket of other projects that I have started and have kind of put away and haven't worked on in a while. But who knows? Maybe I'll get inspired to kind of get back onto it. And that is pretty much it. I don't have much by way of haul. I don't purchase very often. The way I quilt is very project oriented, and I suspect that I would probably be very similar in my cross stitching. I've always kind of just been like, this is what I'm going to work on, so this is what I'm going to buy, and buy only what I need in a given time. So I did at one point in time when I was quilting, I do have a stash of fabric, and then I found myself just, my hobby was buying fabric as opposed to actually quilting, and so I made a decision to only buy what I need at when I'm working on it. So so with that, my next start that I'm going to have in July, and so my goal is to start something in July with a maximum of 5 whips, was kind of my thought. Because I think if I start getting beyond 5, it'll start to get a little bit, I'll start getting anxious about that. Like I have too much to work on. And so, but I don't have, so I'm going to be working on Emily's House from Lindy Stitches. And my color printer broke, so I was not able to print it. But if I can, I'm going to try to put the color picture here. I have never edited video before, so I don't know if I can put the color picture there. But here's my uncolored picture of Emily's House if you have not seen it before. But I think most people have, because everyone's a big fan of Lindy Stitches. But the quote is, "Speak for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute." I was already planning on making this anyways because of my work as a legal aid attorney. I feel like this is my work and my calling, and so I was already drawn to it. And but in these recent times, I feel very inclined to do it even more so than before. And so it's not fully kitted. I'm still waiting for a few more flosses to come in from my packages for America. Has my friend Pickwick Turtle, who also has a YouTube channel, but she's not on cross stitching. It's on pens, I think, right now. She's prolific in hobbies, but that was her terminology. She came up with packages for America, where it was like, well, since we can't go outside and shop, let's go online and shop. But has, like everyone else, packages are taking a while to get here and things like that. So I'm still missing some flosses, but otherwise though, I do have most of them. I am going to be doing it the called for fabric, called for floss on DMC and Gentle Art. So that's what they look like. But I'm going to be doing it on 36 count linen Heartland by Picture This Plus. So this is the fabric, and that's going to be the colors on it. I love these colors, by the way. I love earth tones and jewel tones. I'm not a bright color person. So I like the more warm tones and the cool tones. And so anyway, so that's what I'm going to be working on. That's what I'm going to start next month, as my next month starts. So my first weekend of every month I am going to be starting something new. And so I plan on starting Emily's House in the first week of July. I am filming this on Juneteenth, so I may start it today just to be able to say that in honor of Juneteenth, we are not all free until we're all free. And in celebration of Juneteenth, I am from Texas, so this is not so I've grown up knowing about Juneteenth and the importance of this day. But otherwise, it will probably be my start over July 4th weekend, which I think is also appropriate. Because again, we're not all free until we're all free. So that is Emily's House. And because, you know, I went on a crazy bender, I also ended up purchasing the Beautiful Things. The Oh My Darling, It's True. Beautiful Things have dents and scratches too. I think this is super cute. And a lot of people are working on this right now, so I think everyone has seen it. I'm thinking I'm going to make this as a gift for somebody. I'm not going to say who, just in case she does watch the video, but it's someone who I value quite a bit, who I don't know if she struggles generally, but in terms of feeling imperfections. But we all have imperfections, and I think she's amazing, and it makes me sad, and I think that she thinks that her imperfections annoy people or something. So anyways, and they're not imperfections. What makes her who she is, it's what gives her character. And so yeah, anyways, but so I purchased that along with the I usually do the called for fabrics. So anyway, so I have that. I did purchase enough of the Heartland to be able to do Oh My Darling in that as well. So that's my plan for it. And then I purchased Mary Mary Needleworker because, as again I mentioned, I am planning on putting together a quilt room and a craft room, and I thought this would be a perfect decor for my craft room, right? And so, and I have purchased the floss pack from Lindy Stitches from Stephanie. So I still need to finish kitting it up, getting the rest of the DMCs, and that's going to be coming in one of my packages. And my plan is to do that on a 32 count, Picture This Perfect, linen. I went all in, right? Like I was like, oh, I've never done linen before. I'm like, now I'm all in. Like that's my personality, I guess. It's like, if you're going to do something, go big, right? Do it all. And so I'm going to be doing it on this Belfast Dwarf. So I do have the nighttime package, but I guess because of online, it's so hard to shop online, right? It's hard to see if the colors are going to be what it's going to be. But this is reflective of the color. It's a very bright blue. Like it's like a sunny blue sky kind of day. So even though I'm going to be using the night colors, I don't think of it as night. Like it's going to be like, this is a beautiful spring day Miss Needleworker is working in. So so that's my haul. So I'm in the middle of kitting up something else, but I'm not quite ready to show that. And it's not something I'm going to be starting anytime soon. But it is something I will be working on. So that's it. That's all of my cross stitching to share with you. I don't know how to end. So, as a funny, I do a lot of Zoom meetings right now, right? Because we're all working from home. We're all doing Zoom meetings. We felt like Zoom should have a function where you can have like a fade out, like a fade to black, like they have in the movies, or some kind of like dramatic, you know, because everyone's like, how do you end this? So, anyways, so that's it. That's my cross stitching. I do hope that you enjoyed it. Please feel free to share some comments with me if you have any, and I'd love to hear from you, and it'd be amazing if you subscribed. I didn't even think about that. Like, I see videos are like, if you like me, subscribe, notifications. I have zero expectations of that. I'd just be happy if I have views and people come back. So, but if you do want to come back and know when I post something, please subscribe. My plan right now is to try to post something at least once a month, because again, I don't do so much. So I don't know if I need to do more than that. But that being said, I really enjoy watching the videos, and I feel like it makes me sad when I don't hear from people that I really like hearing from for a while. So so I might increase that to every other week or twice a month or something. But we shall see. It really just kind of comes down to if I have anything to tell you. So, but that's it. That's it on my cross stitching. I'm going to try to stop this video and start a quilting video and see what it goes. But otherwise, we're about to switch to quilting. Thanks. And we're back for quilting. If you have stayed around, thank you. I don't know if you're quilters, but hopefully you are. I find it, so I'm going to talk about quilting for a little bit and YouTube videos. Why aren't there more quilt tubes? I don't even know if that's a thing. Is that a thing? I mean, I've searched for it, but I only found like 2 videos that tag themselves as quilt tubes. But I don't find very many. Pumpkin hollow quilts, which is probably how I ended up finding Flosstube, like, being honest, because I was probably looking for quilting videos. And it's like one of the few that I see, you know, that do this. There are a handful. I'm not saying there aren't out there, but like, you should like hashtag like quilttube or something like that. So my quilters out there, you should be doing this. But most quilting videos are tutorials or things along that lines. I am not that person. I'm just gonna let you know. I am not a well-known quilter. I am not a great quilter. I am not gonna do tutorials. I'm not gonna do any of that, because there's definitely people who are way better than I am in quilting that you should be watching if you want to learn how to do things. But I'm going to try to do the similar thing with cross stitching, which is that, again, I've been quilting for about 15 years, and I'm very I have a very particular way of quilting. I do patterns, they're structured. I don't even do free motion quilting. They're usually straight lines, maybe soft curves, is kind of the way I quilt. And so I'm kind of curious as to maybe trying things like starting like similar to cross stitch, where I'm going to try something different and learn something. I might not do that as frequently. I might do that like on a quarterly basis, if even that. I have a tendency to make one quilt a year because I only quilt on the weekends. Let's see, I don't do it during the week. It's something I do on the weekends, and I only do it for a period of time on the weekends. And I'm hoping that when I have my quilt space and my craft room, that I'll be more inclined to do that more frequently. I think a lot of this has been because I didn't have a dedicated space, and I would have to set up. And as you know, with quilting, the set up it's not like cross stitching where you could just plop on the couch and you got your Q-snaps, you can just keep going. With quilting, you got to set up your machine, you got to set up your ironing boards and your ironing space and your cuttings and things like that. And you know, and that was a production. Anyways, so I don't quilt as frequently as I would like, and then that was kind of what drove me to wanting to get the quilt room done. So I don't really have that much to show in terms of quilting because I haven't done that much. So I have one show and tell for quilting, and this is, I have named it X Stitched, and I did that in honor of May, where I was really focused on cross stitching and had been toying with the idea of the floss tubes and things like that, and I felt like cross stitch had kind of consumed my mind a little bit, so I've named this quilt X Stitched. But it's a pattern called Stolen Kisses by BasicGray, and the fabric is Nova by BasicGray for Moda fabrics. I started this in May of 2019 at a retreat that I did with my Quilt Bee, which is the third Saturday Quilt Bee. That's what we do. That's what we call ourselves. And I finished this on June 6th on 2020. Now, I am a topper. I make a lot of tops, but I don't really sit down and do a lot of quilting. And that's bad because I hate basting. I don't mind the quilting part. I don't mind any of the other part. I very much dislike the basting part. Mostly because I don't really have the space for it, and that is kind of one of my goals for my quilting room, is to be able to create a space where I can baste and not have to baste in such a way where I'm on the floor and it hurts my back and anything along that lines. And so this is my quilt top for BasicGray for X Stitch. So let me find my top, and I'm going to stand up now. Actually, it's this way. Here we go. So this is it. It's so hard to do show and tells for quilts, but you can see it's 6 rows down, and it's just this little cross stitching kind of pattern going across there. I was toying with the idea of doing a tic-tac-toe kind of stitching where there would be some O's in some of the spaces, but I'm not sure that is a how that's going to look. And of course I like some straight stitching. So that's it. That's my only show and tell to show you. But the fact that it's June and I have something to show you is pretty amazing, because again, I usually do about one quilt a year. So, and I don't plan on this being the only quilt that I do this year. And that's it. That's all I have to share in terms of quilting. I'll fold that up later. I promise I'll fold it up really well. So I'm trying to decide what to do next, and I don't have much of a haul to show, but I did. Oh, this is one of my hauls, which is, this is an Aurifil. The fabric, the thread is called Marrakesh, and so this is what it looks like. Focus. Oh, there's a little bit of a glare. I probably should take the plastic off next time I do these. But that's going to be my quilting thread for X Stitch. I think it's going to look great. I think it's got almost all of the same kind of colors, and I think it's going to really pop in the cream color. It's going to really pull out. And so, so anyways, if you have any thoughts on like how I should quilt it, let me know. Because again, I'm pretty kind of boring. the quilting is the fabric, is the design of it. Like for me, the creative part, that's the creative process for me, and that the quilting part is not the creative part. And I know that's not the same for all quilters. A lot of quilters, I see these dynamic quilting patterns and designs and things like that, and I'm just always really impressed by that. And when people who make feathers, like I'm always like, I'm like, ooh, feathers, yeah. But it's but that's not, but for me, I don't find that to be as much of the creative process. And so so for me, that's it. Like I love the piecing of the quilt, the picking of the fabrics and putting it together and things along that lines. And so I had recently gotten into a funk with quilting, like I did with, I got into a funk. Apparently I was in a hobby funk. And I kind of made a decision, it must have been about 2 or 3 years ago, that I was just going to buy kits. I was like, I'm just going to buy kits and just make the kits. Someone else has already done all the work for me and planned it out, and I usually like what they have planned. And it's, for me, it's the process of piecing it, the meditative process of it, and usually they're gifts and I give them to other people. So that was, so for me, it's not so much the designing part of it. But that being said, if I can figure out how to edit, I'm going to put the pattern right here because I don't have it printed out. Because again, my color printer has stopped working, but I bought a pattern called London Calling. I thought I had the black and white, but I don't. And so my next pattern is going to be London. I studied abroad twice, while I was in college and my undergraduate, and then again while I was in law school. I love London. I love England, and I feel like, well, my people did come from there, my genealogy research, but it's home to me. Like it feels very home to me. Same thing with Scotland when I was in Scotland, but it's I spent more time in London than anywhere else. So I'm going to be doing this pattern called London Calling, which is reminiscent of the police telephone, or the telephone boxes, and so I bought some. So this is what I got. This is from Cotton and Steel, and it is also called London Calling. Isn't that funny? And so this is my haul for that. So this is a map of London. That's one of the fabrics. This is corgi walking. Isn't that just cute? Look, I mean, just look how adorable this is, the little corgis. And this is I'm sorry, it's called London Town, not London Calling. It's London Town. And this is the Knightsbridge, so it's like a townhouses in London. This one is sheep's in the fields, in the fields, and in Stonehenge. So these are all of my panels that are going to make up the windows of the telephone box. And for my background, for the metal part of the well, I should just show you. So the pattern is reminiscent of this telephone box, but the background, the part that's going to be in the blue, is going to be in this fabric. It's going to be this gray kind of fabric. I'm going to see how it works. I hope it works well, because there's a lot of prints in all of this, and so I don't know how well it's going to look. It's not going to look until I start putting it together and kind of like laying out the blocks before I cut. I usually do all that before I cut. But I picked this one, has the front fabric, because the telephone box is blue, and my husband and I are big Doctor Who fans, and so I was like, this is kind of our nod to Doctor Who, even though, and how London is always being attacked in Doctor Who shows. And then I went ahead and bought the backing, which is in the gray, and the matching fabric, and then it's going to have the proper red telephone box. And so, and I also have the binding fabric for it, and I just had to have it because even though I have it on the cream color, I did also buy the blue of the Beefeater walking the corgis, because it's just so cute. Like, it's so, and of course the Beefeaters normally wear red, so like I was like, but I needed the cream color so that way, because I needed the light and for the pattern to work. So it's like, but I really want the dark, and so I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I'm probably going to make a project bag out of it. This is what I'm thinking. So, and then just for giggles, I also purchased, what is this? This is Mystical by Elena Essex, for Cotton and Steel. This this super fun fantasy fabric, right? Isn't that fun? I have no idea what I'm going to do with it. So again, I had a hobby of just buying fabric. But again, I'm thinking I'm going to make a project bag out of it. Because, as you saw, I was using Ziploc bags. It's time for me to make some project bags. But again, I'm waiting for packages from America. And I did get a shipping notification yesterday. So I think some of my supplies are coming. So that's going to be really great. I think that's it. I don't have... So that's going to probably be my next pattern. That's what I think I'm going to work on. But that being said, I did see this super cute Christmas kit that just showed up across my Instagram today. And I'm not making a Christmas pattern or doing Christmas cross stitching, and there's a part of me that does kind of want to participate in Jolly July or Christmas in July, and so I'm thinking about buying that kit and making that my start for quilting in July with the goal of finishing it for Christmas and having it up for decor. I guess to have it done by Thanksgiving so I can have it up for Christmas decor, because otherwise it seems silly to wait till Christmas to finish. Anyways, so that's it, and if I get it, I'll have it in my next video, assuming that it arrives on time. Seems like everything's taking about a month for everything to arrive, which is fine. I'm not complaining. I got plenty to do in the meantime. So that's it. Not as long, and so again, thank you so much for sticking around for the quilting part. I hope to see you again next time, and whatever you're doing, I hope you're having a stitching good time. Take care. Bye-bye.